So the story of Black education in the United States is actually older than the Constitution, older than the Bill of Rights, and older than the Declaration of Independence. The story of our sojourn through world history, 1619, is a start of our life on the other side of the Atlantic. Our ancestors throughout the continent of Africa, whether they were Muslim, Christian, or we would call atavists or others, they already had a system of teaching and learning. And we know that also goes all the way back to ancient Egypt and even further south to Nubia. So the idea of schooling and learning is something that we help to introduce to the world at times before learning as we know it in what we call Europe today, and even the role that the Egyptians or the Africans played in helping with the scholars or those who became the scholars in Greece. So fast forward to 1619, the Africans who arrived not too far away from here, where I am in Charlottesville, in Jamestown, in fact, were not chattel slaves as we know them. Dr. Judge Leon Higginbotham, who before he died was a professor of jurisprudence at the Kennedy School at Harvard University. I was a graduate student at Harvard at the time, had the honor to take a class with him. He published a book called In the Manner of Color. And it's a book about race, about colonial politics, and about slavery in early America. And it's a book that I would recommend that anyone who's interested in history, education, law, and policy should pick up. And he basically talked about what happened in 1630 with a guy named John Punch, who was arrested along with two white colleagues and others for some activities. And John Punch, his punishment was serving his life sentence with his master, where the other two who were with him were non-Black, were not. So the idea that we arrived as chattel slaves as we know it today was true. We surely arrived with nuanced status. We weren't citizens, but the idea of chattel slavery had not yet set in. And so when we arrived, we already arrived with the language, with the history and the culture, some of that coming from what we would call schools, but really learning institutions. And so 1619 moving forward really is a conversation about Black history on this side of the Atlantic, even though there was a Black presence in the Americas before Columbus, something that Ivan Van Sertima in his book that came before Columbus identified. So with me, it's just a continuation of a longer conversation. It just happened to take place in what we now call Virginia.